Week 7 brought us some big developments, some changes, some things that we need to keep an eye on for Week 8 moving forward. Before we get into those, enter in the comments. I'm going to get to at least the first 15 people that leave questions, trades, anything like that. I'm going to make sure that I personally get back to them, so make sure to put those in the comments. But going into Week 8, there were some things from Week 7 that I think were really interesting. Let's start off with Russell Wilson. Look, put me down as one that wasn't sold on switching away from Justin Fields. I've been a Fields guy. I do like what he brings to the game, specifically for fantasy football purposes because of all of the rushing upside. But I will say, he looked good in his debut. 16-29, 264 yards, and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Now, will Russell Wilson be as good for fantasy football as Justin Fields? Probably not. But is he going to be better for all of the weapons in Pittsburgh? Probably so. We saw that offense was humming much better than it had in the past, and I get it. The Jets had quite a few injuries, specifically on the back end, but it's still a pretty decent defense, and the Steelers looked like a team that we haven't seen in a long time since the Ben Roethlisberger days. So Russell Wilson might have the ability to bring this offense back, and it might be better overall for all the weapons for fantasy football. We've been talking about him quite a bit, but it's a small sample size. But in a game where we've now had both Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, it does look like Tyrone Tracy has taken the lead in New York. The touches were only 9-6. They got boat raced. They lost pretty handily to the Eagles this past week. But Tyrone Tracy is definitely a name to keep an eye on. If this dampened his price at all because of the low volume game, I would be interested in buying. Not only is he now the lead there, but it's the 6th easiest schedule for the rest of the season, according to Fantasy Pros, at the running back position. So I would be interested in going after Tyrone Tracy just to see if the juice might be worth the squeeze there. Deshaun Watson, Achilles injury. This is one of the rare situations where it doesn't really mean anything for fantasy football. Yes, it's a starting quarterback, but you weren't starting him, maybe in super flex leagues if you had to, but you weren't starting him. And I don't think this changes anything for all the weapons either. Maybe, if anything, it's a slight improvement for a guy like David Njoku, who just never seemed to mesh with Deshaun Watson. But other than that, it's just a lot to do about nothing. You never root for a guy to get an injury, but there's not the outcry that there would normally be for maybe a different quarterback. Is Javonte Williams a thing again? Look, as a guy that I would consider myself maybe the president of the Javonte Williams fan club, after 3 weeks or so, I was willing to put him to rest. I didn't think we were getting the Javonte from before. He didn't seem to be fitting in the offense well. He didn't seem to have the same pop and punch that he had before the injury. And it just, sometimes that happens for guys where they just get injured and never come back the same. Well, Javonte Williams looks like he might be back. He's had double-digit points in 3 of his last 4 games. Monster game this past week where he's a top 5 running back on the week. And the thing that encourages me the most so far on the season, he is 3rd overall in the NFL at the running back position in targets in the passing game. So that's something that really does translate to good fantasy success. If you're getting 10 to 14 touches on the ground, and then you're getting an additional 4 to 5 targets a game, that's pretty solid numbers to be able to put up and have great opportunity at the running back position. So yeah, I think Javonte Williams is a thing again, and maybe he's not a top 12 guy, but I think top 18 seems pretty safe. Could the biggest winner in the Davante Adams trade actually be Breece Hall? From what we saw last night, that might be the case. Breece Hall actually had his highest target game once the addition of Davante Adams happened. And you saw how the field looked. The safeties, the corners, the secondary, everybody was worried about Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams getting beat deep. And what did they do? They left all this underneath room for a guy like Breece Hall to just absolutely eat. So while we'll see how this experiment works with Davante and Garrett Wilson and how both of these guys could or could not work together with Aaron Rodgers, the one thing that seems pretty clear is there are going to be plenty of targets for Breece Hall. T. Higgins. Man, we've been talking about the wide receiver 1 in Cincinnati, Jamar Chase, but maybe it's actually T. Higgins. T. Higgins has out-targeted Jamar Chase over the past 4 weeks. And over that same time period, T. Higgins, wide receiver 3 overall in fantasy football. This is a guy that might not be on the team after this year. He might be going somewhere else as a free agent. But either way, T. Higgins is somebody that quietly is putting together a really nice season. And if you can still get him at preseason prices, I would, because I don't think this is changing. He's going to keep getting targets from Joe Burrow, and he's going to keep producing.